Welcome back to the Veterans Opportunity Magazine.
This Veterans Opportunity Business Enterprise Roundtable is brought to you by Small Biz Video Network. Small business, big picture.
I worked for OSHA for 20 years, and I'm a mining engineer, and I did safety and health. And being that the need for the safety and health end of it, I open up my own business, and I go out and do safety and health audits. I do a lot of training. I do the safety on WVU oil and gas, the OSHA 10-hour forklift, HAZWOPER. I do any kind of training that they need in the oil and gas industry.
Mm-hmm. So you play to your skills.
Yes.
Which
you
is
have to.
Which is what we're advocating for veteran women.
What? There's another point to look at. Women, men, and I kind of don't like separating the two because I've always been, you get jobs on what you can do. There's veterans that are coming out that are maybe not able to do the physical work, and what you said exactly
it applies to them as well.
Could apply to somebody that doesn't have all their, something has happened to them. We actually know a GIS tech at an oil and gas company up in New York who is in a wheelchair, and she's one of their best. She's a geologist, and she's one of their best employees, and she does an awesome job. And I know we're going to get veterans that they have disabilities after coming out, and they're going to need to be able to do something like that. So some training, some technical training, and what Greg just mentioned would be something very good for them to pursue, something like that.
So what are some of the first things, what's one of the first things that you did when you decided to start your company? Did you look at the demand? Is that one of the first things you did?
Yeah. Yeah, I looked out and what companies were requiring, because a lot of the oil and gas companies, a lot of the producers, they're requiring the training because they're using all the subs. So they're trying to keep their training above and beyond. They're trying to keep it up to par so we don't have any accidents out in the industry.
Okay. And when it comes to advice that you would offer, Greg, what about playing to someone's strength? How would you advise someone in the military who is looking for something outside of the industry, the labor part of the industry? What should they do to kind of match their experience with the possibilities, even though, it might not be as obvious?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. I think what I would do if I were in that position is I would try to identify what are all these types of jobs that are created from shale gas. And just looking at it from that picture, you have the extraction piece that we've been talking about, which for the most part, it has it's very labor intensive, although there are components of extraction that are not labor intensive, as we've discussed, acquiring the leases and the title abstracts. And then you have the whole pipeline pieces of securing rights of way so that someone can build gathering lines and pipelines and all those sorts of things. I would try to identify all those different types of opportunities, and maybe that's something that the Veterans Opportunity Network can help to provide as a resource as well. And you have those opportunities, and then do some research on what each one of those are to understand, are there physical requirements? Are there training requirements? Do I need a college degree? Do I need certification? Do I just need to get good at this particular skill? What are the things that it requires? And then I would probably try to talk to somebody that does that kind of work. If I could, just try to find somebody that does that kind of work and ask them how they got started and how they got going. And I will say something about oil and gas that is maybe compared to manufacturing or other things, in that oil and gas has a lot of companies there are a lot of contractors that do different roles, and a lot of things are subbed out to entrepreneurs and small businesses. And so if you spend some time talking to people in the industry, I think you can maybe find those things where you have the skill sets that map well with what some of the needs are. Exactly.
And did you, for example, did you go about networking within the industry How did you go about doing that?
I spend a very large amount of time going to functions, Tioga functions, Ioga of New York, setting up tables, booths, talking to people. And now that the oil and gas industry is really taken off, you could probably go to something every week, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could. There's functions all the time. You couldn't possibly go to every function there is, and it's amazing. Every function I go to, you find somebody that has something or gives you an idea,
Right.
or you gain some kind of insight
Right.
into what is needed or what you could do. So networking things, for example, like this, is very valuable to learn what's out there.
And I'll tell you what, in networking, I would not hide the fact, if I were a veteran, I would not keep that a secret.
No.
I think that's a good thing. I think just in general, culturally within the oil and gas sector, that's going to be looked upon favorably for all the right reasons. I think generally a lot of people in the oil and gas sector view themselves, just in general, maybe slightly compared to the average population, they view themselves as doing something important to the country. I mean, energy independence and all these kinds of things. It just seems to be a theme that runs throughout the sector. So, I wouldn't hesitate at all to share that with others.
Right, and I think veterans are more disciplined, and I think they're not afraid of hard work, and I think they'd be very, very good candidates for work in the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, frankly, when I talk to people in the oil and gas sector, they talk in general that the younger people today just aren't as hard workers in general, just across the board.
That's right.
And so that probably
And a lot of veterans I talk to, they're very respectful. They're very respectful, very hard workers.
Absolutely.
And
it's critical for the veterans to get out and network and go to these events.
Absolutely.
Because you don't know who you're going to run into. It may take 2 or 3 meetings for you to kind of get your bearings and figure out exactly what your role might be. You need to get out and get the word out and to meet people and get involved. And you would be surprised that just by going to 2 or 3 events in a row, you'll kind of start to piece things together and learn about the industry. And it's critical you get out, and 90% of life is showing up. So you just need to get out and get involved with things. Things won't come to you. You have to go get things.
And that's a very, very good point, because when I started my business, being a woman in the oil and gas industry, even though my husband's in the petroleum engineer in the industry, it's very hard and it's very intimidating when you walk into a big show or you walk into a meeting and there's all these guys maybe in suits or big, and you don't know who they are. So it's an intimidation factor. And if you get a woman, you get a veteran, you get somebody that doesn't really feel comfortable. What I started doing was just walking up to people and saying, "Hello, my name's Debbie, how are you?" and shaking her hand. And you get a lot of response. It's amazing. But it's tough to do that. It's tough to get to that point. So if you start getting out there, and what do companies want? They want people out there that are forward, that are going to try to work.
Yeah, but that whole dynamic, I mean, it applied to me too.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not unique to women, or I was every bit as intimidated as
That's right.
described when I first started reaching out.
So it really does matter to lose your inhibitions and to get
That's right.
out there.
Speak up.
And
Speak up.
Because if you don't ask and you don't put yourself out there, you're not going to get any results. So I think we're all agreeing on that.
Yeah.